The White Lotus Graystar screens only recently in July of this year, and it quickly became a hit. The first season only recently ended, and many fans have been left with various questions that they want answered. We recently found out that there will in fact be a second season, hence all the cliffhangers and unanswered questions. In today's video, we're going to highlight some questions that fans and viewers want answered after finishing the first season. What happened to Lonnie after she gave birth? In the season's first episode, Arrivals, we meet employees who are preparing to greet the new guests, including Lonnie, Jolene Purdy, who is still learning the ropes. Lonnie is seen clutching her stomach and appearing to be in pain after assisting Tanya with her luggage. We then find out that she's pregnant and may be in labor. Unable to inform her boss Armand, she continues to work. Her water breaks in the lobby soon after, and there's no turning back. Armand asks Lonnie why she didn't tell him she was pregnant while she's in labor, and she responds that she really needed the job. After she gives birth in his office, this turns out to be the final time we see her for the rest of the season. Belinda asks Armand if Lonnie is okay in the second episode, and Armand has already forgotten who Lonnie is. Fans were ultimately left to speculate on what happened to Lonnie and her child. Did her precarious job situation cause her unwelcome stress in the early days of motherhood? Is that baby alright? Sadly, we have no idea of knowing. Was that scene with Armand real? Armand was shown crouching over Shane's luggage moments before he was killed, leaving an unwelcome gift for his favorite guest. And yes, the poop was explicitly depicted. And now fans are left wondering, was this scene really real? According to Mike White, the series creator and writer, the poo was in fact a hoax. CGI was used in the scene, as was a physical prop for the slightly disturbing close-up shot. We used two different CGI companies. My editor and the assistant were like, this doesn't look real enough. And I was like, should it look that real? The audience might not be able to handle it, White told TV Line. He continued, explaining his initial horror at viewing the fake poop. When I first saw it, my reaction was horror, he shared. But once I got over that, I was like, well, of course, you can't look away. It's the perfect shot for that moment. It's supposed to be shocking, and it should be. How did Shane and Rachel end up together? The mystery of who passed away in the final moments of The White Lotus dominates the show. However, viewers were also left wondering how Rachel and Shane ended up together in the first place. Seeing how quickly Shane's attitude irritates Rachel gives the impression that the two of them barely know each other. It's hard to picture the couple staying together for the long term, let alone agreeing to marry. The fact that they get along so horribly has fans wondering how Rachel didn't notice Shane's red flags before saying I do. I don't understand how Rachel wasn't aware of the monster prior to the honeymoon, one Reddit user wrote. Was he acting completely different and not like an arrogant, pretentious person before all this? Another Redditor pointed out that while Rachel's revelation works for the story of the White Lotus, it doesn't make much sense when given some thought. Her realizing her mistake now serves the plotline well, but not reality. You'd think they would have had more conversations around finances as an engaged couple, as opposed to talking about them for the first time at breakfast on your honeymoon. Other fans speculated that the honeymoon phase of the relationship may have blinded Rachel to Shane's flaws. But even so, it seems unlikely that the two would not have had previous disagreements over money for future plans. Rachel does not appear to be the type of character who would avoid such questions, as evidenced by her refusal to back down from Shane and his mother. Will Belinda have her own wellness center? Belinda, the spa manager, quickly establishes herself as an expert in her field. Tanya, a solo traveler, notices it as well and immediately falls for Belinda, taking her out for multiple dinners. Tanya repeatedly mentions funding Belinda's own wellness center after singing Belinda's praises. But does she truly mean it, or will Tanya eventually turn to the mainland, leaving her friends' dreams to wither on the vine? Belinda, initially skeptical, eventually allows herself to imagine what it would be like to run her own wellness center, even writing a detailed business plan. Tanya ultimately decides to flee with her new boyfriend Greg, John Grease, rather than do business with Belinda, claiming that she must stop using money to control her relationships with others. Even if Tanya's claim is true, Belinda is left broken-hearted. It's heartbreaking to see Belinda end the series right where she began, after going above and beyond to make Tanya feel good and at ease during her stay, even accompanying her to scatter her mother's ashes. Tanya's dream was a passing whim for Belinda, but it wasn't a very real dream for Belinda. As a viewer, you can't help but want the best for these working-class characters, just like Lonnie and Kai. The painful reality is that it was all talk, as Belinda was relying on Tanya's promises, which appeared to be her only hope. Will Shane face any consequences? In the end, Shane faces no repercussions for killing Armand. Shane was comforted by several White Lotus staff members at the end of the finale before boarding a return flight home. Shane did indeed come out on top. Shane was seen yelling at other tourists while waiting to board his flight home in the first episode, indicating that the stabbing experience had not changed Shane or his obnoxious ways. The resort's employees were seen greeting another group of wealthy, entitled guests as if nothing had happened. Who killed Armand in the season finale? Many fans have speculated that Shane Harbers is to blame for Armand's passing. Shane harbors murderous rage towards Armand, but the manager's death is ultimately accidental. After learning that Shane is to blame for his dismissal, a high-on Armand sneaks into Shane's room, where he drops his khakis, crouches over Shane's open suitcase, and leaves an unwelcome gift or two. When Shane returns to his room and discovers the stinky souvenir, he grabs the knife he had placed beside his bed as protection after learning another guest's room had been broken into. Then he turns a corner, looks up, and stabs Armand in the chest. Armand is above all a victim of the world's social inequities in which he and his co-workers live. People like Armand and fellow staff members Kai Ty and Belinda are disposable to Shane and his ilk. Even though it appears Armin's death was an accident, many were hoping that Shane would face some kind of justice. However, sadly this does not occur, although anything could happen in this upcoming season. In the finale, Shane is seen boarding a plane back to his regular life at the end moments of the episode, and the rude way he interacts with friendly fellow tourists suggests he's just as obnoxious as before he thrust a knife into another human's flesh. Rachel, Alexandra Daddario, his briefly estranged wife, even returns to him at the end, though the resignation in her eyes suggests she's doing so out of exhaustion and defeat. Shane appears to have escaped the honeymoon death adventure unscathed, though he will have to live with Rachel's anguish, if he even notices it, that is. What does the future look like for Rachel? Despite being treated horribly by her husband Shane, he's self-centered, entitled, rarely listens to her, and flirts with teens Olivia and Paola right in front of her. Rachel claims that the only reason she wants to leave him is because she doesn't want to be a +1 for the rest of her life. She states her decision firmly, but then returns to Shane, telling him, "I'll be happy." It sounds completely unconvincing, and she appears completely unhappy, but as the first season comes to a close, she hugs him in reconciliation. In a previous episode, she was offered an article assignment, and despite her desire to accept it, turned it down in order to keep Shane happy. He believes she no longer needs to work and should let her career fade away. It's safe to assume that this is how their marriage will progress in the future. Money isn't something they should be concerned about as a couple, and she's already becoming somewhat reliant on it, considering she let his family pay for a lavish wedding and a lavish honeymoon. Did Quinn get a happy ending? Quinn was the gaming-obsessed son of Goop-esque website CEO Nicole and her husband Mark at the start of the White Lotus, Steve Zahn. Quinn, on the other hand, developed an interest in canoeing as the season progressed. Quinn ran away from his family, who had already boarded their flight home, when his parents refused to let him stay in Hawaii. Quinn was then shown paddling in the ocean with his newfound friends in the series' final scenes, implying that Quinn was one of the few characters in the series to have a happy ending. And there you have it. Everything you need to know about the questions fans want the answers to after watching the final episode of The White Lotus. Luckily for us, they've announced they'll be releasing another season. However, fans will have to wait a while for the next season to drop. Make sure to let us know your thoughts down in the comments, and let us know if we missed any questions that you have. What did you think about the first season of The White Lotus? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss any of our new and upcoming content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.